It's a completely wild paradox of human nature. Some of the absolute smartest, most highly educated people on Earth are often the easiest to con out of their money. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into some truly fascinating insights from Chapter 18 of Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money. We are going to explore exactly why we fall for financial lies. And honestly, this is a phenomenal topic because it gets right to the root of our behavior. We spend so much time obsessing over spreadsheets and stock charts, but the real puzzle of wealth? It's happening right inside our own heads. So let's unpack the mechanics of belief and figure out why, when it comes to our wallets, we're just so easily led astray.
So, why do smart people still believe terrible financial advice? It is incredibly common to see highly intelligent individuals trust fake promises, even when the truth is completely, glaringly obvious to everyone else. Seriously, have you ever wondered why that happens? Just picture a brilliant world-class surgeon who suddenly hands over half their life savings to a shady penny stock scam that, on paper, makes absolutely zero sense. Why do they do it? Well, it turns out when our emotions become strong enough, we'll believe almost anything. Raw intelligence is actually not a shield against a really good, emotionally charged story.
Let's walk through a little micro story here. Imagine someone who desperately wants to get rich quickly. There's this deep burning want there, right? A total ache for financial freedom. Then, one day, someone approaches them and says, "Hey, this investment is going to double your money in just 1 month." Now, deep down, this person actually knows it sounds unrealistic. Their logical brain is waving a massive red flag. But because they want it to be true so badly, that intense desire completely overrides the doubt. They choose to believe it anyway. And then, inevitably, we hit the final tragic step of this story. They lose every last cent.
Now, the absolute crucial point here is that this investor didn't lose their money because they lacked intelligence. Not at all. They lost it simply because their emotions completely overpowered their rational thinking. It's essentially a biological hijack. The logical part of the brain, the part that knows doubling your money in a month without massive risk is just impossible, basically gets locked in the trunk. Meanwhile, the emotional part of the brain takes the steering wheel, blasts the radio, and says, "But what if it's true? My life would be absolutely perfect."
It turns out, as human beings, we don't generally believe things just because they're factually true. We actually believe things for 3 main reasons. Number 1, we desperately want them to be true. Number 2, we're terrified of something, and this new belief offers an escape hatch. Or number 3, the story just feels incredibly emotionally satisfying to us because it validates our pre-existing hopes and dreams. When you look at it this way, you realize that in the financial world, emotion is firmly in the driver's seat. And logic? Well, logic is just sitting in the back, quietly along for the ride.
And this brings us to a constant daily conflict we all face, the desire for comfort versus the reality of the world. We naturally gravitate toward comforting stories. We absolutely love the hype, the promises of guaranteed returns, the gurus making blind predictions with absolute certainty. Why? Because they make us feel totally safe. Meanwhile, we actively try to avoid the uncomfortable truths, the actual reality of the market, the ever-present risk, and the fundamental unpredictability of the future. Let's face it, the truth is messy, it's stressful, so we gladly buy into a comforting fiction instead of dealing with reality.
Now, this vulnerability literally skyrockets during uncertain times. Think about periods of economic turmoil, sudden market crashes, or huge unexpected global events. Just look back at the years leading up to the 2008 financial crisis, right? A deep desire for risk-free, high yields led brilliant institutions to believe in completely toxic mortgage bonds. When uncertainty increases, the human brain just panics. People aggressively search for any narrative, any story at all, that gives them comfort and makes them feel secure, no matter how entirely unrealistic it might be. The greater the external chaos, the lower our threshold becomes for believing a comforting lie. And because people strongly prefer those comforting stories over difficult truths, we see some really dangerous outcomes flourish in the financial world. First, scams spread rapidly because scammers are absolute experts at selling you comfort. Second, rumors grow completely out of control because they offer simple, comforting explanations for massively complex problems. And third, fake financial promises succeed wildly. You see, the people selling you guaranteed wealth aren't actually selling you a financial product. They're selling you the emotional comfort you're desperately craving during a stressful time. But we've got to face the harsh reality here. Following the hype, blindly believing predictions, and trusting those quote-unquote guaranteed returns ultimately leads to a devastating cascade of negative consequences. You start making basic financial mistakes. Then, those mistakes compound into heavy financial losses, and ultimately, you end up making incredibly poor long-term decisions that carry a real-world price tag. We are talking about wiping out years of hard work,
having to cancel family vacations, or severely delaying your retirement. That comforting story, it always ends up demanding a massive toll.
Let's actually just pause on this thought for a second, because there is a powerful truth here you need to internalize to protect your wealth. People believe what feels right, not always what is true. If you can truly internalize that, if you can genuinely recognize that your own brain will actively try to trick you into believing a falsehood just because it feels warm and fuzzy, you will have a massive advantage over the rest of the market.
All right, time to put on your armor. To fight back against these deeply ingrained biases, we need to build 4 essential critical thinking habits to short-circuit our emotional vulnerabilities. First, you must relentlessly question your emotional decisions. If you feel a sudden rush of excitement, hit pause. Second, think critically about popular ideas. Remember, just because a crowd agrees on something doesn't make it a fact. Third, actively avoid anyone promising a guaranteed return. High reward always carries high risk. And fourth, train yourself to stay incredibly calm when uncertainty hits.
You must remember that fear and greed severely distort your thinking. Strong emotions fundamentally reduce your mental clarity. It's kind of like trying to navigate a massive ship through a really dense fog. You wouldn't speed up when you can't see what's in front of you, right? Well, the exact same goes for your money. When you feel those intense emotions spiking, whether it's the intense fear of missing out or the sheer terror of losing what you have, that is your clear signal to step back, not to act.
So what does your defense look like in practice? Think of this as your ultimate mental checklist before making any major financial decision. Let's look at the do's first. You absolutely must do your own research before investing. You've got to fight tooth and nail to stay logical when the pressure is on. And you must willingly accept the uncomfortable truths of risk and unpredictability. On the flip side, the don'ts. You must flat out reject trusting the hype blindly. You must never believe unrealistic promises. And above all else, never ever let your raw emotions make your final decisions. Adopting this mindset is a phenomenal defense mechanism. Ultimately, what you should take away from this explainer is a total reframing of how you view financial danger. Because here's the thing, the greatest threat to your wealth isn't the economy, it isn't the stock market, and it certainly isn't a lack of raw intelligence on your part. It is entirely about uncontrolled emotion. A genius who can't control their emotions will always lose their money to an average person who can. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder. If you want to make better decisions, if you want to avoid the scams, and if you truly want to build lasting wealth, the path doesn't start with some hot new stock tip. It starts from within. The question is, are you ready to master your emotions before you try to master your money?